Yeah. If you would ask your question again so it goes into the context.
Yeah, so I guess I was just looking for a little more information on the mechanics or steps or felt experience of what we refer to as direct path versus what I've classically heard as more maybe just an open awareness practice, as well as more of a Dzogchen pointing out instruction, which seems to be a little more like a point in time, relaxing into something.
Yeah. So that the old Zen saying, like, we have two choices. We can either stay silent or lie. So all I can do is lie. Because I know that you're asking a question that needs an answer, but the problem is that there's no precise answer.
Yeah.
Because awareness, actual pure awareness, which we all experience all the time, is not an experience. An experience requires a subject and an object. So I experience seeing you. That's a subject, what I call me, and then you're the object of what I'm seeing. Okay, and then you, of course, experience the same thing. And with mindfulness, there's a subject and an object, or, multiple objects in some cases. So that kind of meditation fits directly into our normal experience, which is experience of thoughts and feelings and sensations and perceptions. Okay, that makes sense, right? Okay. When we get into awareness or being aware, there is no experiencer separate from an experience of. It's just awareness. And we can say it's awareness of awareness, but that sounds like two things, and it's not. It's self-aware. It's self-awareness, or being aware, or being. And because there's no subject and object, it can't really be described. We all can relate back to experiences, again, using the word, which isn't really the right word, of that. But we can't really describe it in language, because language is based on nouns and verbs. In other words, things doing something, things having certain qualities. This isn't about, there's no thing, and it has no qualities. It just is. So any description of this is going to be contradictory, and it might even sound different than other descriptions of it, even though it's the same description, because the words get clunky. So when people start to parse out different descriptions or instructions and say, well, that one's different than that one, it's not really different. It's not a different understanding of a different experience. It's just different, clunky, incorrect ways of trying to get our minds to understand something that the minds will never understand. Because the mind only works with subjects and objects, with things doing things or having certain qualities. The mind can't comprehend anything else. So, and language depends on our minds, obviously. So that's a long way of saying that I can't really answer your question that well. But that doesn't mean that we won't try, okay? The best way to do it is, in guided meditations, it becomes evocative rather than descriptive. hopefully, occasionally, it's evocative, and then it tricks our minds into just shutting up and not thinking about it. In other words, the mind comes to its own end. It reaches the point where it can't go any further with it, and then we're just there. We don't even have to drop into something. We're there. We're always there. It's just the mind's in the way. It's not like we're not aware. Like, it would be absurd to say, oh, we're not aware, and then when the mind shuts up, we become aware. No, we're always aware, but we're distracted by the content of experience, by thoughts and feelings and perceptions and sensations and everything. So we lose that distraction, and immediately we know what this is. We're just directly there. So descriptions are, they need to be evocative. It's more like poetry. It may not sound like poetry, but it's not like, oh, this is the perfect instruction, and then that instruction over there, whatever it's called, whatever tradition it's from, isn't as good. No. They're all trying their best. So if it's Dzogchen, if it's Direct Path, if it's non-duality, if it's Shinzen calling it do nothing, Adyashanti calls it true meditation. There's a million names. True nature, I am. There's just a lot of different formulations. And at different times for different people, they work. But there is no activity. There's no effort. There is no real doing, because there's no doer. As soon as there's a doer, then that's the self or the mind arising. As soon as something's being done, then there's a subject and an object. There's somebody doing something to or at something. So it's not a question of any kind of doing or effort or skill at all. So in that sense, relaxation, or falling back behind or below the level of doing, is kind of a hint. It's not an instruction, Like if you try to relax, try to relax. It's like, try to fall asleep. It doesn't make any sense, right? Like, it's when we fall asleep, we're actually moving in that exact direction. Falling asleep is not an activity, right? It's letting go of activity. It's actually letting go of the doer. And then everything just sort of chills out. And that's much more in the direction. So does that help?
That does help. The relax below the level of doing, I think, is helpful, but not instructive.
Right. You can't try to do that. Yeah. But, on the level of meditation, we're all used to being our own meditation coaches. Like if you're learning mindfulness, you're learning a concentration technique, there's a little part of your mind that's saying, am I doing it right? Well, here's the instruction, here's my experience. Now I need to tweak that part. There's a little internal meditation coach that's sort of keeping track, and right? That's useful. That for that kind of meditation, that's fine. That makes total sense. For this, that meditation coach got fired. If they're hanging around, they're trying to get their job back. It's like, no, you're fired. Go home. You have no job here. You have no role to play. your role ends when I sit down. Like, don't think about it in terms of meditation. Because you're not meditating, because meditating is a verb. There's nothing to do. That's why, in Zen they say it's just sitting. Like, they really mean that. Just sitting. You're not doing anything. You're not meditating. You're just sitting. They're trying to, like, get out of the idea that there's something to do. So you have to fire your meditation coach. The one that says, am I doing it right? Go home, watch football. Leave me alone. And then there are these different sort of pointing out things. Like, one of them that some people find valuable, I find it valuable or interesting sometimes, is just to say once. Not a mantra, just I am. Because that points. Some people do it with questions like, who am I? Like, again, when you ask a question like that, you're not looking for an answer from the mind. It's not like, who am I? Oh, this is my job and my family. No, it's who am I, like the most ultimate sense, and you don't answer it with your mind. And for some people, some of the time that points. It kind of like, oh, it's not an answer. It's an experience or a being. So there are different ones of those, and you can play with that in your own time and to see if any of that is useful. Those are two really, I think generally speaking, those can be really good. Either a question like, who am I? Or just the statement, I am. Because the I amness is really what we're talking about. Not that I am anything else. As soon as you get into like, I am with nouns and verbs and adjectives and no, that's not. It's just pure I am. And that points.
Question of like firing the meditation coach. Seven's package. I guess like it seems like there could be a danger of you think that you're connecting with awareness or I am or whatever, but you're actually just sitting there like daydreaming, or like creating a narrative or a story about how you're connecting with awareness or you're practicing non-dual meditation. Is that an actual danger, or is it really just like the instruction is to just like sit and...
It's not a danger. There's no danger. I mean, the mind's going to do what it does. It's not. That's not dangerous. Your mind starts buying guns and, planning on killing people. That's dangerous. This is not dangerous.
Well, I'm
sorry, I'm kidding with you. But, no. But how do you know that that's happening? Just go to the awareness, like the knowingness of that. You're always aware. Don't worry about what your mind's doing. Your mind do what it does. But you go, well, yeah, but all that's happening, and I am, or I'm aware. How do I know that all that thought is happening? Just because you're aware, you're here. So you just go to that. Well, regardless of what the mind is doing. It's going to do something. It's not just going to pack up and shut up.
You might not know, you actually might not be really conscious of what it's doing unless you're applying some kind of mindfulness.
No, you're aware that it's doing something. You don't need to be that cognizant of what that something is. You're going back to the awareness of what's happening. You don't need to like be that focused on the content of what it is that it's doing. You don't need to fight it or silence it or push it away or argue with it or outwit it.
So you're sitting, doing direct path, being aware of awareness, and thoughts arise in your mind. And it seems to be like, you're aware of those thoughts. And the risky part is like getting entangled with them, right? And so at that moment, then I just try to cease.
As soon as you realize that
Not
you're,
stop the thoughts.
as soon as you realize you're entangled with them, what happens?
Just cease being entangled with them.
You are at that moment not entangled with them. The minute that you realize that you're entangled with thought,
Right,
you're already not entangled. You don't need to do anything to disentangle with thought. Right? It just happens automatically. Like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I was lost. And as soon as you realize that you're not. And then, we have to like realize like, well, how entertaining is that movie? How much are we willing to pay to watch that movie? Or can we just like hang out? So, in a way, there's a subtle effort, but the subtle effort is not holding on, not clinging, But it takes, I'm holding on to this thing, right? That's the effort. If I let go, there's no effort, But the problem is, we let go, and then we're like, oh, that was interesting. I need to think about that. It's like that's. So recognizing that, right in the moment, recognizing that we're picking it back up. Picking it back up is the effort. That's the doing. That's the action. But it's such a strong habit. That's the habit. That's the effort. That's the doing. It's not an effort to do this. But there's a habit. So you have to not put energy into the habit of like, you realize, oh, I was thinking, and you let go of the thought, and then there's like this attraction. But. Right?
You cannot put effort into the habit if you're not thinking about not putting effort.
I'm just reiterating that this beingness doesn't take effort.
Yeah.
That the other stuff does. But breaking a habit in some way does take an effort. But it has nothing to do with the beingness. But don't fight your mind, because if you try to fight your mind with your mind, it's more mind.
Yeah.
But even when you are like going back to the thought, you're still aware, right? If you could, you can tap back into that, right?
You may be, even when we're getting lost in thought, we're still aware. We're just not aware that we're aware.
Right. But you don't have, like you were saying, you don't have to get rid of the thing. Like, oh, I can't think about it anymore. You just have to go back underneath or whatever.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that it's like, I've heard it described as like being like a mirror, right? The mirror isn't going to not have anything, like any reflection on the mirror unless there's just no light, right? So it's not trying to get rid of the reflection. It's just like it's okay for the reflection to be there as long as
the mirror is aware that it's a mirror,
right?
And not the content of the reflection.
I've run into this before, like in my own self, like for a while, where I was like, oh, wait, no, I'm lost in thought, and so now I'm totally off, and I think that's a real trap, because then you're like you said, you're just trying to fight it, you're trying to get it out of your head, and with traditional awareness practice, you can go back to the breath and stuff, but you're like really creating that subject object. And I found that the easiest thing to do would be like, don't worry about it. Like, just don't worry about, like, if I was, like you said, as soon as you realize that you're not lost in thought anymore, and so not fighting it, can find the awareness within that thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I think I hear people when I'm talking to them about it, and they say, well, how do you know that you're doing awareness practice or just being you? And I was like, like you were saying, just like the Zen practice of just sitting. Well, you are still sitting, right? It's just, I don't know how to describe it, but you're not, the focus isn't on whatever that reflected thing in your mind is. It's on just being that mirror.
Yeah, and it's not even really a practice. It's not a practice. There's no doing. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to learn. Practice means there's something to do, and you can learn it and get better at it. There's lots of things that take practice, but this is not one of them. It just is. It's just recognizing what is. Okay, so we will try to do or not do this. So, Brian, why don't you stop it and then restart it as a new thing? That's